Greetings, Warlords. Welcome to Saga Thursday, the show all about the skirmish miniatures game from Studio Tomahawk. I'm your host, Rodge. We're joined by Mr. Adam today. Adam, how's it going?
Good. How are you?
Good. So, yeah, you're a long-time chum of mine, and you are the recent winner of Fimbulwinter 2024. So, I appreciate you taking the time to come on here and just really letting us know how brilliant you are and everything you do. I appreciate it. So this year's Fimbulwinter was Age of Crusades themed, and I'll have the rules pack linked down below. All the specifics for the scenarios and stuff like that as we're chatting. If you have questions about that, you can definitely dive into that. But we're just going to chat about what you took, how the games went, and the overall experience, how you pulled it off. And a little tidbit at the end, as you were also one of the people who played Age of Chivalry. So I'm going to ask, after we're all said and done here, I'll ask how that game went as well. So if anybody wants some little Age of Chivalry tidbit teaser at the end here, we'll talk just a smidge about that as well. But Fimbulwinter this year, like I said, was Age of Crusades theme. So this is probably the least popular book in the Midwest, I would say. I don't know worldwide how it does. But Adam, you were the last guy to sign up. Thankfully you did. Yeah, it would have been a different event if you had forgotten to. But I think you thought you had signed up for a while,
right?
And so presumably had some sort of plan in place. So after taking a look at everything, what faction did you decide on?
Yeah, I was coming in hawing on it. I was originally thinking about like Moors or something like that, but they're fine. But looking at all the boards and kind of reading up a little bit, it seemed like Crusaders, Baltic Crusaders were what I went with. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so you've got a nicely painted force that you put together pretty quickly here, I'd say. Are these like Victrix or a mix of stuff?
Yeah, mostly Victrix, I think. I've gotten to the point, like, in my hobby, like, with some warbands, just all contrast. And, like, I actually just, like, break guys off of horses and put other guys on the horse so I don't have to paint the horses anymore. So
That's awesome.
I just had some old horse models and ripped the guys off, put these guys on, painted them black, gave them a white cross, and said they're Crusaders. So they're all Normans. And maybe when I want to play Normans, I'll just repaint the shields and
good to go.
Yeah,
I love that approach. Yeah, if you don't have to, you can just reuse the horses. That's key right there, saving you some time. So, yeah, I was surprised you didn't play a Muslim faction because I know you had one from years prior, but yeah, decided to put together something new. So
yeah. And the Baltic Crusaders are good. I mean, there's a lot of other more aggressive, more defensive factions, but it's just like it's kind of in the middle. Like it's doesn't have any paper rock scissors matchups like some other guys out there, but like I can just always kind of compete or like at least not be completely counted out for him. So
sure, yeah, do a little bit of everything, and like you said, some of these scenarios really force movement, and you got some movement fun there you can do.
Yeah.
So, what was the kind of composition you decided on?
Yeah, 4 points Hearthguard, 2 points Levy. All the Levy were crossbows. And the Hearthguard, I pretty much did the same thing each time. It was 6 heavy weapon Hearthguard, 4 sword and board Hearthguard, and then 6 mounted Hearthguard, and then a mounted Warlord. And then we had like a bonus model that you got to use in some of the rounds, maybe, and that was a bishop, which is nice. Gives defense dice, which like there's a lot of reroll defense dice things on the board, so it came into play at one game.
Oh, okay, cool. Well, sounds good. Let's jump into the first round. Who were you matched up against?
Steve Lesky was my opponent. he was running Crusaders as well. He was
Yeah.
Levantine, but he didn't have any pilgrims. And so we chatted about it ahead of time. It's like, oh, that's a interesting build. He's like, yeah, I've never really run these guys out, and so like, we'll figure them out together. And this was my first game with Crusaders too. I don't think I've actually played any Crusade era stuff since version 1 of the game. So.
Yeah, Crescent and Cross times.
Right. Yep.
For sure. Yeah, that's way back. That's cool. So kind of essentially using the same board mechanics. If he doesn't have any pilgrims.
Right. It's just his shooters are more expensive because they're warriors. Yeah.
So this one was a basically ambush from the Book of Battles with just a couple random, just a couple things that make it slightly different. You couldn't shoot them. You had to gather them in melee. You got an extra bonus point if you were the one who did all the work of grabbing them. And then during the game, they weren't worth anything, but at the end, they were worth 3 points, and you counted survival points. So how did it go for you?
Yeah, this one being the one right out the gate. I mean, I won this round in the game. Thinking about it ahead of time, I'm like, do I jump out and grab the objectives first, or do I wait for my opponent to do it? And one of the things I found just thinking about it is like, okay, if you happen to like start fighting in the middle in like the main runway of the objectives, you're just going to get fatigue piled all over you. So it just kind of ended up being that Steve came in and kind of went over the midline first and came after the objectives first, tired himself out, and that allowed me to just kind of counterpunch his fatigued units kind of one at a time. So I kind of set up in the middle, so not like going after the objectives right away, and played for the late game, and it worked out pretty well because neither of us really got to the objectives till like turn 3 or so, and then we just kind of dusted it up. But he was fatigued and I wasn't, and I had crossbow levy and he didn't.
Okay, yeah, a couple extra fatigue or two here or there, plus a few extra bodies. Man, and those crossbow machine guns probably helped out.
Yeah. But funnily enough, the model that you beat me with at Feast of Ravens, your counselor model on the last scenario, was the model you placed on our board to be like full objective. So all game, I'm just staring at this guy who like beat me. The last game, he's running across the board.
He's always looking up at me. What's your problem?
Yep.
That's funny. All right. Yeah, that's true. So, yeah, we played the last tournament. You and I faced top table on the last round. So, to show you're not a slouch. So, did you capture all 3 of the objectives by the end?
Yes, I wound up getting all of them. And this was one of the scenarios where I thought heavy weapon Hearthguard would be good because they can just, crash into those objectives.
Yeah, they could probably do it in one, where almost no other unit is going to be able to do that. So, yeah, that's cool. Now that I think about it, yeah, I think you did get all 3, and you're one of. I think there was maybe one other person who got all 3. It's pretty darn tough to get all 3. So, kudos on you for getting it done. Round 2, who were you matched up with for this one?
Zach in his Ordenstadt.
Okay, yeah. So Zach had just beaten up on Bob round 1, and he was ready to play with the big boys. So this scenario was Battle of Hero cards. We drew randomly, and it ended up being survival points, no special rules. The terrain was a little funky. One person would control the terrain essentially, and I believe that same person would be second player with 4 dice on their board if they wanted. And did you guys do a bid?
So we did do a bid, and I think this one, if I'm remembering correctly, I think I bid, and I definitely wanted to go second because it was favored by what was rolled up for the scenario.
Yeah, so the second guy would go set down all the terrain, and then he would put 4 dice on his board to start, which is pretty nice.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's That's awesome. That's good. It's kind of like just knowing on the fly, from your gut if
Right.
it's going to be worth it or not. And me and Monty, neither of us did it, but I won the roll off, and I'm like, oh yeah, this is awesome. Like you should have been Monty.
Right.
So, it was a weird objective with the corners, getting troops in there. Did that come into play in your game, or was it just like a fight, a battle?
I was worried that it would. So like I set up a nice ruins right central in my area, shoved all my crossbows in it, defended with Hearthguard on the side. So I had a little fort. And I found that in Saga, like sometimes like making a too like defensible or too impregnable fort means that like you just never engage with the opponent and you draw. So I was a little bit worried that Zach wouldn't fight. And so there's this point on like turn 3 or 4 where I'm like rereading the objective. I'm like, oh, he had surrounded me. So there's just Ordenstadt everywhere all around the fort in the middle. And I'm like, I really hope Zach doesn't like know that he can get a ton of points by just like running for the corners right now, because I wouldn't be able to catch him.
Like zoop. Yeah. Just making a move for it. Well, yeah, Zach, not the most clever fella, I will say. So what did he end up doing? Did you kind of have to jump him and entice him to keep him away from the corners, or how did it end up?
He eventually just came into me. I mean, he had a few, like he had to divide his forces up on the different sides of the rocky ground, so it allowed me to shift and, take out one thing while defending the other. And this is a game where, because I captured all 3 of the objectives game 1, I had my bishop, so I was handing out those defense dice with like a ton of rerolls. So it's like I could hammer and anvil, so I put my 4 Hearthguard defending, the back line on one side with 2 extra defense dice and reroll all your defense dice. And it's just like, okay, that's
you can take a lot of damage for sure.
And then I was able to run my horses or something out on the other side and chase down some of his archers that had gotten too close.
Mm-hmm. Right, cool.
But yeah, eventually he just bit and came in and
stood the onslaught.
Yeah,
the big helmeted man.
Right.
So okay, cool. That's like a fun game there.
Yeah, beautiful army, by the way. He's done an incredible job with that, so I'm really impressed.
Mm-hmm. Did you help him achieve the Glorious Day objective of, what was it? Having a unit on the other side of the table. I think that's what it was. Did you manage to achieve that?
Yes, I was able to, I think just by a whisker, push him out of my half of the table. It's like no units of like 4 or more within your half of the table.
Basically on your half, yeah. Okay, cool. Yeah, very nice. So another decent win. Going into round 3. This one is the hostage. And this scenario, it's kind of like ambush, just like in reverse in some ways. You're running on the table, but the objective's already there, and you're trying to free your guy to turn him into baggage. So who were you lined up with in this one?
So yeah, I was up against Scott Durung, and I chose my 6 Hearthguard with heavy weapons as my like hostage guarder.
Yeah, so there's 2 strategies. It's like a 4-pack of warriors, or like 12 warriors, 6 Hearthguard, just like, come on in, let's see what you got. What did Scott choose for his? He just had like warriors, didn't he?
Yep, he grouped all those warriors together, and so it's just 12 warriors. And
oh, big. Okay, cool.
Yeah, and I think he bid and took first turn, and so he was able to pull his warriors back. He had a ton of pilgrims. He was running Levantine Crusaders with a bunch of pilgrims. And so he just kind of pulled his unit back, pushed all of his other stuff forward. I diddled around on my turn, and then on his turn, he just came in with these waves of pilgrims battering against my Hearthguard.
Did they? I don't have a good opinion on those pilgrims. What do you think after seeing them come in?
They can hit real hard. They've got this one ability where like it was really good against my Hearthguard, which they only lose a maximum number of models equal to armor, which in the past I've looked at and it's like that seems bad. But like if you're charging 12 pilgrims into 6 Hearthguard with heavy
with
weapons.
the heavy
It's like,
weapons.
oh,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
can't be as choppy as I want to be. So he just
Okay.
battered me with them. But I'll freely admit this. I had some pretty good armor save rolls throughout the game, but particularly driving off those pilgrims from getting my my objective at that crucial like second and maybe third turn was a big swing for me.
Okay. Yeah, if you can manage to free that guy, you can really, really mess things up. So did he ever win a combat against
Yep,
it?
he freed them, and then I came in and took him back.
Took him back. Okay, got him back right away.
So it was kind of a scrum there. He was bleeding pilgrims by just kind of having to be real aggressive and coming across the midline of the board there. And in the meantime, I was kind of chewing on him a little bit in one flank, and so all that together kind of let me squeeze out a victory.
Okay. Cool. Did you get to free your hostage?
Oh, no. No, I was just trying to hang on to mine the whole time.
With everything you got. Okay, yeah.
His was buried in a bunch of pilgrims who are super defensive on his turn and super offensive on his turn. So he made his own little fort that I was never going to get into.
Okay. Oh, cool. Sounds like a good game.
Yeah.
Managed to pull it out. So, yeah, after day 1, you had 3 wins, so that was good. Good on you. Going into day 2, the scenario there was the breach. So we broke out the castle walls, and you were lined up against Monty and his Mutatawiya. So when you had that draw of Monty pulling up to the table there, what was going through your mind?
Great. I love Monty. I mean, I'd been playing ahead just because of where we were at. I was thinking I was going to be facing up against you. So I was thinking, it's like, oh, how am I going to fight into your thing? But I love playing with Monty. It's great to see him. And so that day 2, when you're kind of near the top in tournaments, it's always like, what sort of personality am I going to face at the table? Is it somebody who's going to be really, business and wanting
meticulous? There's different adjectives. Yeah.
Right. So, I was very pleased to see Monty. I'm very pleased to play all of my opponents. And so Bonnie and I sat down. He had Mutatawiya, which is like, looking at his board, I'm like, oh, you are much more offensive than I am. So I just kind of had to play this scenario on the fly. And it worked out to get like I had to fight tooth and nail just for a draw. Yeah.
So this game I actually got to see quite a bit of as I was walking around. And so the objective was to get your troops to the other side. The game was survival points. Any troops that didn't make it through the walls, through the breaches to the other side would be dead at the end of the game. And castle walls in the middle, you can climb them. They could be solid cover. It's kind of dangerous. Each guy who tries to cross rolls a d6, and on a 1, he suffers it. He's a casualty. It takes 2 to cross it. So basically only 2 out of the 3 guys you send across are gonna make it. So maybe with Levy, you'll take it, but you don't throw Hearthguard up there if you can otherwise avoid it. So most of this battle seemed to be on your side of the board. So you were kind of holding him off or kind of waiting for him to come through.
I think either we both bid or Monty bid more than I did. So with us, the deployment zones were quite shallow. So he bid to go first, and he was able to shove everything up with maneuvers and get right up on it, which denied me maneuvers. So he just rushed up, hid behind the walls for the most part. And then it's like, okay, I'm going to be on my back foot this whole game. And so he kind of like leaned more heavily to one of the 2 breaches. So I shifted my forces over, did a few exploratory shots, and actually did some pretty successful shooting on his weaker flank. And
so you shot him because one side just had like 1 Hearthguard, maybe like 4 or 5 warriors or something. I'm like, ooh, what happened there? So did he like poke his head out, and then you just blast, just start blasting?
Yep, he poked his head out. And with his list, he was hemming and hawing about it early on. He's like, do I take camels or something more mobile or not? And
it's true.
Like,
he's got Cav too, so
and
you could see
like,
making a run, or what's the right one.
Right. And I think he was worried about my crossbows or something. And so in the end, he decided for foot Hearthguard. And so that meant that I could like reasonably start committing to his weaker breach without him rushing over and, hitting me with a billion dice and blowing me up. And so that's essentially what I did is that, I left all my levies and a unit of Hearthguard back as like the sacrificial troops on my side, blocked the other gap, and then I sent my other 3 points and my warlord through the other gap. That was more or less free. I was still worried the whole time though, because like 1 mutt Hearthguard or like 3 mutt warriors can still do a ton of work. And that was his plan too, but I was able to just barely kind of slide through.
Yeah, so even on that weaker side, that Hearthguard, those warrior, we know the mutts can do disproportionate damage out of control, so even though it looked open, wasn't really, you still had to wait till the last turn. And so you got about kind of half your army through. Monty, he was kind of like human meat shields out there, kind of covering the other way as his army poured through that breach. You're trying to gun him down as best you can. So it ended up kind of being even in the end. It looked like, I think the game just ended. It could have been an extra turn. Is that right? Or did you go the extra turn?
No, it ended. And yeah, I killed a bunch of his stuff, but he got everything across and he killed 0 of my models.
That's right. Yeah. He didn't kill anything.
Well, the problem is rounds 1 and 2, he rolled a ton of rares. So the entire game, he was just sitting on rare, like he had 3 rares placed all over his board and he never picked them up. So it's like, well, I'm not charging into that.
Yeah, I don't want a taste of that. That's funny. So yeah, Monty, he got the draw without killing a model. That's kind of achievement there.
Yeah, and like there's no reason for him to charge into my troops that were never going to get across. So the scenario caused a lot of kind of interesting scenarios where it's like, well, I'm not even going to charge the 24 crossbowmen that are shooting me every turn because like they're already counted as dead. So it was
and if any guy you lose, is coming from your VP pool.
Right.
So yeah, it's a really interesting, fun scenario. It's just really different. But it's fun to work your brain around the mechanics there. So after the game, did Monty wish he would have taken the camels or the cav or anything? Did he express any regrets?
I don't know. I don't think so.
Okay, sometimes that post game chat, you go, I should have.
No, he was struggling. I mean, I posed a lot of good questions to him. I guess he had a unit of like 8 bow warriors that he actually sent over the walls, and so lost a guy or 2. And then shoved them right in the middle of my force, and there was like 2 left. But then he's got that mutt ability where if I were to kill them, he'd fatigue my whole army. So there were just like 2 mutts just hanging out. I had actually at one point sandwiched him in between units, so I had like Hearthguard in front of him, crossbows behind him, and we just sat there. Like,
you're not going anywhere, buddy. Just calm down. Yeah. Got police action. Just chill out. Just chill out. Just sit down.
Again, if I touch him, he explodes and probably kills a bunch of me and fatigues everything. So
funny. Yeah, it's pretty interesting dynamics in that particular game.
Right.
So you were still sitting pretty good, though. 3 wins and a draw. And for round 5, you got matched up against prior opponent, Scott.
Yeah.
So this was a 16-man event. So going 5 rounds with 16, the way it worked out, it was likely in round 5, people would possibly be playing someone they played before. And so Scott was doing well outside of your game. And so he had reclawed his way back up. So you guys were the top table going in. So this scenario was table quarters, grabbing, each turn you have a table quarter, you gain a point. So it starts small, but mathematically it can get out of control. depending how things are going. There is a L-shaped obstacle in the middle, a fence, essentially, that players will have to dance around. So, did you... How did it go with the bidding and stuff like that? Did you end up kind of gaining control of the fence, or was it Scott?
I don't recall if I bid for this as well, but he had first turn.
Okay, so he went for the fence. The fence, lads.
He actually didn't, and it was an interesting game in that regard. Because his units are so big, it's hard to fit them all behind the fence.
Sure, yeah. If you can get the attack to the side, basically,
right,
you just negate it. But you kind of have to come from that angle. So, how did the game develop then? There was a battle for the fence.
Yeah, so going into it, kind of like what you're saying, both Scott and Monty, like just thinking about like the tournament as a whole, it's like can I squeeze by with a draw to like take the whole
sure. So that's a good point. Yeah, Monty was, basically sitting, just a little bit behind. He was at the start of your game, he was a little bit behind. You guys just drew, so he was still just a little bit behind. So he was on table 2 against another Mutt player. And, basically if he had a big win and you didn't, he could have come back at the end. So, yeah, so you had that rolling around in your mind, essentially. Right?
Same thing with Scott, too. Like, he had a beautiful warband, a beautiful model.
Sure. Yeah, there's a few extra little bonus points there that can push it over. So, yeah, it sounds like you have to win, for sure. Right.
And though I got max points the first 2 scenarios, like I was scraping to get just the win or the draw in the last 3 games, so I wasn't getting the full max tournament points. So I was sweating it all the way until the final announcement.
Right, yeah.
So yeah, this game, like going into it, it's like, well, I just need to win. I don't think I need to like chase his warlord around, but like I just need to win and then hope that like everything else like carries. So he took first turn and he didn't like do a full board press. He sent 1 or 2 units kind of up towards the middle and the rest kind of danced around just outside along. And so he did that for the first turn. And then what I had found out, we played this scenario at Saga Storm as well. And I found that it's kind of like on a chessboard. Like if you can just get your stuff to the middle of the board, you got some options for like moving to the different quadrants or at least denying.
Yeah, I can easily, I need him back here, or I need him up here. I got to contest this one, versus it can be tantalizing to throw stuff way out on the wings and be like,
right.
It's way out if you want to spend your resources to try and get this, I guess, but this is like a junk unit for me or something, or, is a red herring or, trap.
Well, and he disincentivized me to deploy in the middle by putting a big steep hill right in my deployment zone. Right? But I said, fine. And I just deployed all my stuff on the steep hill and said, yep, like that's fine. So I just moved short all game, but it also let me get those crossbow units. I had 1 crossbow unit that could straddle the line between my 2 home zones. But stayed far enough away. And with that fence there, it kind of had to funnel him to like come around.
Oh, yeah. So you didn't have a direct shot to him necessarily.
Yeah. So essentially, I just like moved up just enough to like contest my 2 zones. And on the zone that he kind of did a heavy flank on one side. So I did a light flank on the other side. So we were always like jockeying and keeping even on the quadrant control.
Tit for tat. Yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, the difference is he had 8 crossbows and I had 24. And he would come in with like 1 unit of pilgrims, but all of his other pilgrims, because he had a mass activation, his other pilgrims stayed outside along. And I was wondering, Saga is always a tricky one. It's like, do I send 1 unit in to like be a cruise missile, or do I send everything in and then he can shoot everything?
Sure. Yeah.
And so it was hard to say what.
Do you think the prior game, some of the events in that one kind of dictated or scared him off or anything like that?
I Oh no.
Because you don't usually play it the same person in the event.
Right.
You know, so having it come back, you know, was there something that you learned from that previous game that you're like, oh, okay, I'm not gonna let that happen again or anything like that?
There were a few little tips and tricks that I picked up about like being able to target some of his different units to kind of keep the board wide so that he couldn't just funnel one pilgrim unit at me.
Okay.
Because he can keep one pilgrim unit super defensive, but if I can do my first activation via shooting, it gets past his little the battle board ability. And if I've got two targets, then you know, he can only pick one of them to be defended.
So he sent the one unit in, and then he wanted a God's Host it,
right?
Get the defense dice, and that was like the only good target. You know, would get the defense dice, but you could get an easy 10 die blast in on it before it could generate it, right?
Right. Yep. So you get one, and even if he does get, what is it, 4 bonus defense dice? I mean, if you hit him 10 times, that gets through a couple.
Yeah, it was really nasty seeing those shots against those pilgrims. Armor 3 with a +1, hitting on 2s. You're rerolling 5s and 6s, but it doesn't matter, you know, if you're hitting on 2s. So, you know, you're really, as a Levy hater, I really loved it. I was like, yeah, doing God's work, Adam. Yeah, take him down.
And that was kind of the one interesting thing with all of my games. So for that particular game, it was just I just shot his stuff down. In this tournament, interestingly, you know, there's a lot of round and round about like the how to balance shooting out, but in this one, only I think Warlords and Hearthguard were downgraded to warriors, but not to levy. So every hit I caused, you know, was at least a warrior or, you know, levy if they're levy. So I was able to plink and plink and plink and get up on points like that.
Okay. So there's kind of a lot of standing off when he would try to kamikaze in, wouldn't really work. And then you kind of shoot him down. Retaliation, sounds like. Was that a good description of kind of how it went? So kind of just needled in your direction a little bit more each turn?
Yep. So you would send kind of one unit up, it would get mauled, and then he'd pull it back and send another unit up, and it would get kind of mauled by crossbow fire. And he had a few units that were just kind of, like we were saying, they were kind of out on the flanks, making sure that they got a quadrant, but then they were outside of L, and he was, you know, kind of saw him doing the math of like moving that unit far enough in to be combat effective without getting shot up again, like on his turn or on my turn. And the math just wasn't adding up, I don't think. And we had this weird kind of tete-a-tete between like, I had 6 Hearthguard that never moved the whole game that were mounted, just staring at these warriors that he had in a field that were 6 inches away. And so we're just like,
oh yeah, I remember walking past, seeing like, what's going on here?
Right. So yeah, in that game, in that game, I had 2 units of 12 crossbows, but I found throughout the weekend having 24 crossbows gave me a lot of flexibility for like when I needed extra shooting or extra saga dice. So I really kind of appreciated the flexibility that the 12 crossbows or the 24 crossbows gave.
Sure. So you wouldn't necessarily be two 12s, but you would split them up.
Yep.
Is that right?
Yep. So like again, somebody like your army, which like benefited from I think opponents having larger units. I could do 2 9s and a 6.
So okay, so that's what you would have given.
In the one where there were 2 breaches, I did 2 12s because that's what you need to cover both of them. But in other scenarios, I did like 2 6s and a 12. So just like the whole run of different options.
Okay, that's cool. So if Scott had just thrown it all in,
I don't know.
would that? You think that would have done it? Were you worried about that, or?
Yes, I was worried about it. I kind of, again, I have no idea how it all plays out with his board or like his style or things like that. But I definitely felt relieved when he would shuffle his units sideways with his mass activation instead of running them straight
down
the middle.
Okay. Yeah. So, I'm sure he knows he's at the top. Doesn't doesn't want to just lose it or throw it away, and trying to nickel and dime and find a way to make it happen. But perhaps in the end, the right move would have been just throwing it all out there, turn 2, and then it's decided one way or the other, you know.
Yeah, I think it's hard to figure, what his thoughts were, but it was those pilgrims are nasty, and so I was happy that they weren't running straight at me.
Yeah. All right, cool. So in the end, though, it was just kind of just like the minor bottom barrel win, if I remember correctly.
just trying to survive and just trying to like.
So, you weren't sure kind of what Monty. Did you go over to Monty and be like, hey, how did you go? Did you try to suss it out?
No,
what his number was?
Whoever won, but I was just like, Monty paints real well, and he's a great opponent. Same with Scott. Like I voted for Scott for the painting stuff, and so it's just one of those where it's like they could get plenty of like favorite opponent votes, and they could get plenty of like paint votes. So it's like, and those were worth almost half to
just a few extra points.
Yeah.
So in the end, you did end up taking it. So Monty, he got like I say, he got a bottom barrel win as well.
Oh, yeah.
So if get back, he probably should have pushed it or something. You might have draw. You would have won the draw. Probably, as I can't read this writing here, too small. Yeah. So even if you got one more, it still would have went to you. But you're no slouch on the hobby side of things, and you know how to read the rules pack and get those easy bonus points.
Yep.
Can be a challenge for many of our players to do that. So you're always one for that. So yeah, at the end of the day, you came out with the victory and got that coveted Crusader mug. I don't know, do you have it within arm's reach of you at this current moment?
Yeah, it's right over here.
We could show that bad boy off.
On my way home, I stopped at McDonald's and put a McFlurry in it. So
nice.
The first was he.
Awesome. Well, I'm glad you got some use out of it. Feel free to return it next, or not return it, but bring it back next year. I'll fill it up for you once or twice in the Saga Gaming Hall. But yeah, sounds like overall good set of games. Just anything about your warband or anything that you would do differently next time?
I'll probably do this. I'm probably gonna bring Crusaders to Adepticon, but I'll probably paint up a few more sword and board guys. I feel like the heavy weapons are fine, but sword and board are also fine.
Yeah, they can be a liability.
Yes.
They can be useful, but they can be a liability. So just looking at the situation on the ground and making a call one way or the other could be. So well, glad you were able to sign up in the end.
Yeah.
And
I think the other thing that I can say too is I found it very refreshing, and I was happy that we didn't have mercs and we didn't have like legendary warbands.
Okay, cool. Yeah.
I very much appreciated that. It meant that like there weren't any like weird gotchas or weird combos. It was just like your board versus my board, warriors, levies, hearthguards, and camels or whatever else it is. I just really like that.
Yeah, so I'm always looking out for your average tournament going guy. Tourney guys, deep Saga players might like all the options and potential combo building aspect of having mercenaries, but about half of the field here are seasoned Saga players and half are just pretty casual guys, and I would say you kind of straddle that line. You're a long-time player, but you don't get too many games in. It's mostly events and stuff like that. And I knew too, some of these scenarios were a lot more complicated as well. So just kind of dialing it back with the mercenaries in that aspect was important as well.
Well, I think even beyond like the newbies, I think that like, creating limitations breeds creativity. So you hear on not that there's a lot of podcasts, but you hear on podcasts like, oh yeah, of course, like Fanatical Pilgrims, duh. Like, well, like let's make it less of a slam dunk or less of a clear pick and open things up and see what people kind of create, come up with.
So this isn't the one true way to play Saga, but these are the limitations set forth. What warband that you can build and paint in time is going to give you the best result. And sometimes you think something's going to be good or under a particular set of circumstances, but oftentimes you find the same old tried and true stuff that you got the reps with. Often see it through, but yeah, glad you're the winner. Couldn't have gone to a nicer guy, and you are Roger's tournament favorite. Any event I'm running, you seem to show up. I'm your closest tournament guy, I think.
Yeah.
Geographically, so I feel lucky that that's the case, and that you're able to make it over. Because it's great having you around. And
thanks to you for running it and getting it all sorted out. We very much appreciate all the hard work that goes into it. And we thank you.
Awesome. Now, I almost forgot, we mentioned the Age of Chivalry stuff.
Oh,
so just real quick, and not really giving spoilers or whatever. If you say something out of line, I'll bleep it. So don't worry. I can't think of what you would say, but I set you up. So this was actually your final game against Scott was actually your third game in the weekend against Scott.
Yeah.
Because he was running Swiss with his pike blocks first. I set you up with Burgundians. So you had a crossbow unit, a bow unit, and 2 units of 6 Hearthguards. So, and a unit of warriors. So I really didn't have any clue if you take a 2 units 6 Hearthguard, you kind of got to have a plan or some balls on the board or a reason to do that. So I didn't really know if I was setting you up well or not for the game, but just kind of quickly, how did it go?
It was an interesting matchup. I wanted, it was late in the night, and I was just like, let's just see what happens here. So
just push it.
I definitely played less like Saga principles, and it seemed like Scott was like trying to focus more on how to minimize losses and maximize Saga dice and stuff like that. And so I just YOLO'd my stuff in. The Burgundians had some good things where they've got some things that work well with the archers and the Hearthguards to move and work
so you can shoot. You spend and Scott was telling me about this. There's I think it's just a common die. You can shoot a unit and then either move or charge a unit or something like that. Does that ring a bell?
Yeah, there was a lot of that. Like if you I call it like a marker light is what you call it. So like you can laser tag a unit with some sort of archery, and then give it a bonus to melees that happen to that unit later the turn.
Cool.
So that's what I was doing. I was tagging a unit and then sending the Hearthguard after them. And the Burgundian board seems very strong. There was a lot of, it seemed like there was a lot of activations on the board, the surprising number of them. And so it gave a lot of different options and a lot of different stuff that you could use. So
cool. Yeah, sounds like fun time. I was a little muckered out, so I had to head home for see the conclusion of that one. So well, that's awesome. Hope you had fun with that. Are you interested in chivalry?
Sure.
Personally?
Yeah.
Just whatever. As long as it's Saga, it's good, baby, right?
Yeah, it'd be nice to see new boards. It's always nice to see new what they come up with, very creative new mechanics. So I'm always excited to kind of see the things expand and hopefully get to a tournament with it, paint something up new. It's hard to tell, I'm not building anything yet.
Sure. Yeah.
We'll kind of see how things go, whether it's next year for Fimbulwinter or something in the fall. Sure, I'll paint something up and do it.
All right, cool. Glad to hear. Yeah, I'm pretty pumped for it as well. So, all right. Well, Thanks again for coming on. If folks want to get in touch with you, I think you're on the Discord.
Yeah.
Is that right? Remember your username on there, perchance?
I think it's just Adam Trunzo.
Adam Trunzo. All right, there we go, baby. And I think you said you were going to be at Adepticon, right? Yep. Crusade. You mentioned Crusades, so a lucky listener might be facing this very warband. Yeah. Oh, what luck! What ho!
Right.
Oh, that's awesome. You said, were you going to do Friday as well?
Yep. So I'll do Ancients.
Oh, the Ancients stuff too. What do you have in the works for Ancients?
Yeah, I've been painting up a little bit here. I'm going to do Successors, and I think I'm going to do double elephant. You can do two elephants in a unit, right?
Yeah, you could. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm gonna
that's
give it a
right.
shot.
Yeah. Keep forgetting that we kind of played each other back at Saga Storm. So yeah, you get some stuff. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. You're set. You'll be doing fine, my friend.
Yeah.
All right. So looking forward to it as we record. This is just a few weeks away. This will probably come out just a week or two beforehand. So this will be a good introduction. I'm sure you get lots of people chatting you up down at ACON now that they know you're the man. So, all right. Before I go, I do want to thank Terry, Patrick, Sean, Mitchell, Scott, Frank, Britt, and DJ, the rest of the Saga Thursday patrons. And Adam, you are on this list as well. Hey, look, Adam is in here somewhere. Adam T, that's you right there. So thanks for being a patron. I really appreciate it, buddy. And if anybody has any questions for either one of us, comment below. If you're interested in the scenarios and stuff, packet will be below. But otherwise, I think we're going to call it for this one. All right, Adam. I'll check you later.
Take care.
Yeah. Bye-bye. Saga! If you'd like to see more Saga content, consider joining the Heathen Army over on Patreon or popping on down to the Saga Thursday Discord server. Links below. Thanks, guys.